These are the 10 biggest mistakes that led to the Rams' 2022 demise. Number 10, hiring Liam Cohen over Thomas Brown. Thomas Brown was the in-house guy. He was the assistant head coach. He was a running backs coach. Now he was getting an opportunity with the tight ends. But Thomas Brown always was about running the football. He had that experience and likely would have helped balance out the run, balance out the offense. Liam Cohen, however, was formerly with the Rams. He moved on and went to the Kentucky Wildcats, where he turned that offense into a top 4 offense in the SEC. One would think it was a huge upgrade and a great addition for Sean McVay, but I would argue keeping a guy who had just won the Super Bowl, who had been in that coaching staff and who the players actually had chemistry with, would have made more sense. Why Thomas Brown wasn't promoted as the de facto offensive coordinator is beyond me, but I think they missed the ball, and I don't think they can afford to do that again. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's number 10. Number 9, not paying Odell Beckham Jr. Look, we can talk about it all day. Odell Beckham Jr. tore his ACL for the second time. You can't pay a guy like that. Hindsight's 2020, right? We all know that this did not go well, and now the Rams likely won't have OBJ as a Ram again. That's just the fact. But in reality, if the Rams paid OBJ, made a long-term effort to keep him, a guy that during the media days had already expressed interest in not only staying, but taking a hometown discount. Maybe Von Miller stays. The reports are that he wanted a Michael Gallup-like contract, and that was very much in the cards. The Rams were interested. However, it didn't happen. It would have been doable because that money went to Allen Robinson anyway. Number 8 was letting Austin Corbett go in the offseason. This was very much a head-scratcher, as the Rams had made it a focal point in the offseason to really target the offensive line. They spent money giving Rob Havenstein a contract long-term. They paid Joe Noteboom, they paid Coleman Shelton, and they paid Brian Allen. But arguably the more durable and the better overall offensive lineman in Austin Corbett was the one that they let go. And why did they do that? I couldn't tell you. He only commanded $8 million average annual for the Carolina Panthers. I feel like the Rams could have brought him back, and they probably should have. The hope is Logan Bruss becomes somewhat like Austin Corbett, but at this very moment, it didn't make any sense why they let him go. They spent $6 million average annual salary on Brian Allen and $13 million on Joseph Noteboom. Again, Corbett was only $8 million and played at a very high level. To make matters worse for the Rams, he's gotten better, like a lot better. When you look at last year's snaps per pressure rate compared to this year's, he's by far ahead of any Rams offensive lineman. And furthermore, last year's pressure rate of 22.3 snaps per pressure, that would actually be better than everyone on the roster right now. So last year's Corbett was better than anything on the roster today, and obviously this year's would be leaps and bounds. Very, very questionable, and probably could have him higher. He comes in at number 8. Number 7, focusing all your time and energy on Von Miller. Look, I understand Von Miller was a revitalized star. He's a guy that is a Hall of Famer. He's an elite talent. But the Rams should have left it at that. If they could get Von Miller back, great. But should they have made that their entire offseason? Probably not. And it's not to say that he even was, but he was a big reason why they had to pivot. Again, hindsight's 2020. Von Miller very well could have cost the Rams a shot at not only bringing back an elite pass rusher in himself, but an elite pass rusher in general. Everybody was off the board. They took so long, and Von Miller didn't make his decision until guys like Hassan Reddick had already signed. So the Rams were left with really nothing. And because of that, they paid dearly, and you've seen it this year with the lack of pressure coming from the edge position that was once held by Von Miller. Number 6, spending the money you had left over from not getting Von Miller and sending that right on over to the wide receiver position. I'm a big fan of Allen Robinson, and I do believe he would have worked in this offense if, well, let's be honest here, if literally anything went different. But here's the facts. They did not need to pay a wide receiver other than OBJ, and they did not need to pay a wide receiver really to begin with. They had drafted Tutu Atwell in the second round of 2021. They had spent a 2020 second round pick on Van Jefferson. They had the best wide receiver in the league in Cooper Kupp, and they had Robert Woods, who would eventually come back from the torn ACL before the season even started. So why were they about to shell out $15 million to go and get Allen Robinson, who's coming off his statistically worst year of his career up until this year? I couldn't tell you. I thought it was a change in how they were going to play their game. I thought it was to give Matthew Stafford a deep ball option, a guy that could go up and high point the football, but they never used him correctly. And all this really did at the end of the day was just really not make a lot of sense. You didn't fill a need at the edge position. And then in addition to that, you created all sorts of chaos at the wide receiver spot. OBJ never returned, and you sent a fellow fan favorite, a guy that you basically coined the term win it for Bobby for, and a guy who had been with your team since 2017. And in addition to that, a captain. So I don't think that was the best move from the Rams to focus not necessarily on filling that hole left by Austin Corbett, not necessarily focused on filling the hole left by Von Miller, but spending that money to go out and get a receiver, and that wasn't Odell Beckham Jr., who already knew the offense, who already had the chemistry with Stafford, and that's something that Allen Robinson never had. Number 5 kind of goes hand in hand here. It's trading away captain and fan favorite wide receiver Robert Woods. Look, Robert Woods tore his ACL, but Robert Woods, as we know, was able to come back from that. And I was never concerned about that. I knew he would be back and he would be fine. He's not having a great year with the Tennessee Titans because the Titans don't throw the ball and they're the most boring offense in football. But it works, right? Because they have Derrick Henry. Anyway, the point is here is that Robert Woods was a guy that made everything work. He fit the offense like a glove, and you knew it. He was constantly healthy, and he was actually more healthy than Cooper Kupp. He had a freak ACL tear that happened in practice the day OBJ was signing his deal with the Rams, and he never played for the Rams again. It's quite a shame. I think he deserved a better ending, but in addition to that, I think this honestly could have hurt the Rams. Who knows how much of an impact this left on the locker room? Who knows how much of an impact this left on the offense? Maybe there were times this year where Sean McVay, who was using Allen Robinson pretty much as another Robert Woods, felt like Robert Woods might have done things a little bit better and definitely missed him. We'll never know, but I was not a big fan of it, and I do think these type of decisions come back to bite you, and this one at the time was not a fan of, and I think it came back to bite them. That's number 5. Number 4 is a little weird here. Maybe it's too high, but I do not for the life of me understand passing on Zadarius Smith, who was released by the Green Bay Packers, a guy who was cut and wouldn't have cost you really anything as far as compensatory picks because of it. The Rams have gone this route before with Clay Matthews, with Eric Weddle, and of course, as they would in this offseason with Bobby Wagner getting released during the offseason by the Seattle Seahawks. So this was a little surprising. Zadarius Smith has 9.5 sacks currently. And it's not one of those hindsight is 2020 things, because Zadarius Smith, we always knew had the talent, and he always has shown the talent. This year, he's been great. He's won a Defensive Player of the Month, and he's won a Defensive Player of the Week award. He is having a great season, and he's a big reason why that revitalized defense and a revitalized team in general, coached by Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, is doing so well. Number 3 kind of goes along with that, not addressing the edge position until round 7. I'm as big of a fan as the person who's watching this when it comes to Daniel Hardy. I'm excited to see him play. But the Rams literally went into the draft. They lost Von Miller, and they were looking at the potential of Leonard Floyd, who is very good, but he's not elite, and Justin Holland / Terrell Lewis, who had never really shown anything more than being quality potential starters, but most likely a rotational type of guy. So why didn't they address this position in a draft that I don't think was the deepest this year at the edge position? And they did not address until the 7th round with a FCS pass rusher. Again, I'm as big of a fan of Daniel Hardy as it gets. I love the guy. But it didn't make any sense You released Chris Garrett. You didn't sign Okoronkwo. You didn't sign Von Miller, and you didn't bring anybody in. So what exactly was the plan here? What exactly was the plan? Very, very bizarre. It almost seems like the plan all along was to roll in-house, draft a guy in the 7th round who you could develop, I guess cut a guy who you drafted in the 7th round before who you didn't really try to develop, and then while you're doing that, try and offer a Godfather offer to the Carolina Panthers to acquire Brian Burns, who is a franchise pass rusher. He's 24 years old. That didn't work out, as we can see. Number 2, giving Joseph Noteboom a big contract when he's had multiple injury issues and hasn't started much. He should have signed for cheaper, and this is my thing, okay? I'm a fan of Joseph Noteboom. I like the guy, and I think that signing him was a great move. But I may have thought this move was a little better when it first happened than it really was. The way this works is that Joseph Noteboom signed a $13 million a year deal. Obviously, there are incentives and things like that, but $13 million AAV is what it all comes out to. Noteboom was the guy who, if they had this planned out to be the left tackle like we all assumed, and they did show that when they paid him, why didn't they just pay him beforehand? Why didn't they just give Joseph Noteboom the contract? What did he have to show them that they didn't already know? It's not like he was starting, so why did they wait until the very last second when his stock was as high as it could be to pay him? They gave him money that he has really never earned. I'm not saying Noteboom shouldn't have gotten paid at all, but $13 million a year is a lot for a guy that doesn't have many starts in this league and a guy that has a lot of injuries in this league. And unfortunately for Joseph Noteboom, he suffered a torn Achilles this season. So we have no idea now. You spent all that money hoping to have some assurance at left tackle, and we don't even know if he's going to be the left tackle of the future. Everything is awry. We don't know. And Noteboom wasn't really playing that well before he got hurt. So this is a big, big question mark. Why you went after him, why you paid Brian Allen, the two most banged up on the offensive line. But again, it goes back to earlier, you didn't pay Corbett. What was going on there? Lastly, my number 1, I think you guys know where I'm going with this. It's the mismanagement of the running back room. Look, I understand that some people are going to say, look, there's no way the running back room was the biggest thing. But I really think this team, first off, could easily have 6-7 wins if they manage the run better this season. Maybe that goes back to the beginning when I said that they should have just made Thomas Brown their offensive coordinator. Brown had a feel for the run game because he was a running back coach. Brown had chemistry with the players because he didn't leave for a year. He was always with the Rams. I'm not knocking Liam Cohen for leaving and getting experience, but I am saying that I would rather have the guy who was in-house, who has the wherewithal and who knows how things work, more than the guy who left for a year and then came back. That's all I'm saying. But really, though, this was the most mismanaged run game I've ever seen. Kyren Williams is a guy that they love. They trade up to get the 5th round. Love the pick. We all knew the plan. He has a striking similarity to Darrell Henderson, not as fast or quick, but he has a striking similarity to him in that he's a great pass protector. He helps you in the run game, but he helps you in the passing game. He just does it all. And this is somebody that perfectly fit replacing Darrell Henderson, who was going to be a free agent after the season, which led me to believe that it was a Kyren Williams versus Cam Akers backfield after the season. However, we start off this year with Darrell Henderson starting in Buffalo, Cam Akers getting 3 carries, and a whole bevy of controversy in the running back room. The first time we've seen that since Todd Gurley, which wasn't that long ago. Unfortunately, nothing really worked out this year. At no point did any running back really get into a rhythm. Sean McVay and company did not allow these running backs to get into a rhythm. They somehow were a worse rushing team than they were last year. And for whatever reason, they didn't bring back Sony Michel, who likely didn't fit the offense they were trying to run. But when they had all those issues, you have to wonder why they didn't consider bringing him back in the offseason for as cheap as he was. Was the plan all along really just to trade for a running back at the deadline? Was this the same exact plan that we were talking about with the edge? Because Christian McCaffrey, they actually went for. And I, to this day, don't know why. I don't know why that they were that interested in getting him. Weren't they this high on the running backs? They didn't draft one aside from Kyron Williams. It's not like they took one in the 3rd round. They took one in the 5th round who they traded up to get. What was the deal here? And why were they so high on Cam Akers, who then they were so okay with cutting him or potentially trading him away at the deadline to then cutting Darrell Henderson? It's a very weird conundrum, this Rams 2022 season. And I could basically sum it up as we kind of didn't realize it, but we should have seen some of this coming. From the moment they started the run it back campaign and then didn't allow a guy like Bobby Woods to run it back with them, from the moment Von Miller chose the Bills, from the moment the Rams went out and got Allen Robinson to replace Robert Woods, from the moment they didn't address the pass rusher spot until the 7th round of the draft, pretty much from the moment Matthew Stafford started complaining about elbow pain and not practicing, both running backs didn't practice in the joint practice. Did this catch us by surprise, or were we too blinded to really see what was happening? And does that mean this team has lost its way? Does that mean this team it's paying its dues? Does that mean that this team is done? I don't think so. I think this was a bad year. And I think, unfortunately, I want to applaud them for paying the offensive line. And I don't think the offensive line is necessarily as bad as everyone else does. But their priorities weren't straight. I loved the Bobby Wagner signing, but guys like Austin Corbett needed to be locked up. So did the demise start in the offseason? Is it that clear? Can we really tell? I don't know. But what I will tell you is that I believe these 10 things definitely led to what we've seen. And that's not including the injuries, because obviously you would say the injuries. But I think most of these things being in the offseason show you when people were saying, hey, you should probably draft a pass rusher, they might have been right. When people were saying, hey, you probably shouldn't trade Robert Woods because he's a team captain and knows the offense fits in it like a glove, probably right. There are consequences for your actions. And the Rams went through this losing coaches like Kevin O'Connell and losing a coach who we see over in Denver killing it right now, in Coach Ejiro Evero and other coaches. Sometimes it's not as simple as they make it look. Funneling coaches in and out every single season is going to catch up with you. So while everyone focuses on the all-in and the trading away of picks, you're focusing on the wrong thing. I think the Rams' debt was collected this year because of the coaches. I think a lot of this came down to coaching. I think a lot of this came down to mismanagement during the offseason, going after the wrong guys. The priorities weren't straight, allowing Von Miller to dictate your entire offseason plan. That's my thoughts. I think things will be different this upcoming year, and the way people act with this team, you'd think this team doesn't pick in 2024 at all. They actually have all of their picks back in 2024, and they have a second rounder upcoming in 2023 with other picks, but they now have a second rounder again. So we'll see, but these were my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, all that jazz. Really does help me out. But yeah, we'll have more of these. If you enjoy these top 10s, or maybe I should do a top 5, let me know. Always down to experiment with you guys and see what works. But I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You guys take care. Later.